Battle Trajectory is coming. That means Beyond the Pendulum, full power Scareclaw, surprisingly, and some other interesting goodies are actually going to change this game up quite a lot. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So we are going to be looking at Battle Trajectory, how the meta is shaping up here for Master Duel, and just kind of some more of my honest opinions on where I think things are going here. So Adamancipator, I've been pretty vocal in the past that the adventure package being limited, some of the, I guess, like hits to this deck have really kind of pushed this deck down. I'm going to leave the deck in tier 2 for now. I still think that the overall potential that this deck has is rock solid. Ha ha ha. But we're pushing it down from like the former 1.5 that we've had. It's just, I don't know. Until like we get Illusion of Chaos, which kind of starts to bridge the gap for things. For some reason, we just decided to dodge that. I think you're going to continue to see this deck play more hopscotch along the way. Now, the Ignister deck. Ignister, I think, is in kind of an interesting position in this format because the deck itself is still very solid. Like, this deck detours a lot of players. It's one of those decks that will catch you off guard. And I mean, it's a 1-out-of-1 format. I'm still going to leave this in Rogue at this point. I think, honestly, the full power that this deck still brings to the table, it's a very good Rogue contender for doing just what it needs to do, which is just, you know, taking the game away from your opponent. All right. Next up is the power of Phantom Knights. Now, they have the adventure package. They have a lot of solid stuff going for them. Actually, this deck has been gaining a lot of popularity as of late on Master Duel. And I mean, yeah, you're down like VFD and some of your other stuff, but you still have good old, you still have some of the best extra deck fields to put out. A lot of detouring from the opponent. I'm going to put this in the head of tier 2 for now. I think this deck is very, 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 very good. Now, Sword Soul, I'm still going to leave in tier 1. Here's my thing with where Sword Soul is right now in this game. Sword Soul is definitely behind Albaz. Albaz is like by far so far ahead of like the rest of the meta. It's actually kind of crazy. Like, you know, Mirror Jade and Friends, the deck, it's your skill curve goes so far. And when we saw this format originally in the TCG, it was basically Sword Soul and that, you know, going for each other tooth and limb. But I still got to leave it in tier 1 because it and Albaz are basically your two challengers to kind of keep up and break that meta. Now, of course, I got to leave this here. I honestly solidly think, for the most part here, that this is definitely the best deck in the room. You will have some things that will come close to it for sure, but for the most part, that's just kind of how the game works right now, man. Like I said, Albaz is just 300,000 yards ahead of the rest of the meta. There's not really much you can do about it. Valiance, I'm going to put Valiance in the... There are... Man, you use parts of the Valiance deck for certain Pendulum aspects, yes. But I'm going to put it in bad for now. I want somebody to prove me wrong with this. I've always loved Valiance, and, you know, this deck is finally coming out. Like I said, there's little interesting things that you can do with, like, using the field spells with, like, Pendulum Sorcerer to, like, net some advantage. It's really cute, but you only tack out a couple of pieces for that. It's nothing major. So I just want to throw that out there, that you use bits and pieces of that to be able to make those little plays. All right. Flounderies, we're going to put at 1.5. Advent of Adventure is still needed, but this deck is still the anti-meta monster. I've read all of the infinite posts from people, even in like the actual TCG, where people are like, how do we beat the penguin? You know, a very powerful penguin will detour your opponent. All right, it will put you in such a good position that you should be able to win the game based on just having the penguin touchdown. All right, it's so good. It's so ridiculous to me how good this deck is in a format like this. Like, good stuff, I guess, Konami. Eldlich, Floodgate deck. I'm gonna leave this in Rogue. My problem with this deck right now, it's still Eldlich at the end of the day. Like, it still feels ahead of everything else down here, even with like the crazy limitations that have been placed on it. All right, like shout out to Floodgates. All right, I'm actually gonna leave Marincess up here in tier 2 as well. This deck, I mean, with how slow they're adding cards, I mean, this deck, players don't know what Marincess does. It's a 1-out-of-1 format. You can't board in kaijus to break them. I think your place sitting on the board as a rogue contender is actually pretty solid. Like, this is one of the best decks in the format that you can just catch people off guard. And I've been saying that for a while now, but the deck really does do some scary things. Scareclaw. Now, how viable is Scareclaw versus the rest of the meta? Well, like Marincess, they do have Lightheart, which makes a lot of a difference here, especially in a 1-out-of-1 format. I actually want to put this deck in Rogue. I do think that now that they have Lightheart, they can actually do some things. Giving this deck a Link 1 straight off of the bat, for them to basically be able to get their chance to shine in Master Duel was a very nice piece of candy from Konami. Like, good stuff for this. I do think that this deck, at the current iteration, will have a Rogue potential slot. I'm also going to put Kairishin Control in Rogue. If you don't know what this deck does, same thing here. Your worst matchup is literally Marincess, but you just create this infinite floodgate vacuum where your opponent can't, capitalize on monsters, and they just get washed away. Like, there's nothing that you can do about that. That's just how it works. All right. Now, Numeron, I'm also going to put down here in Rogue. Your whole like purpose for these decks is to catch, once again, your opponent off guard, right? Your opponent doesn't have a game plan for go second, haha, lightning storm, time to OTK you with limiter removal. It's kind of crazy to me just how consistent that it is when I play against those decks. Those decks ruin my day for sure. We're also going to put Spiral in here. Thing is, Spiral has such a crazy ceiling, and the deck is able to get off of the ground relatively quickly. It's just nobody wants to dedicate all of their time to trying to learn how to play this deck. Like, that's kind of like our issue right now. Is like, the deck is good, but how much time and effort do you want to dedicate to playing this? So that's that. We're also going to put I guess I have to put Drytron. I'm going to put Drytron up here. This deck still has so much combo abuse. It's literally... The problem without the side deck, though, is you lose some of your side decking options that made this deck relatively strong. But if you can open up and do your basic plays all the time, you should be good to go. Dragon Link also is going up here in 1.5. Deck's ceiling still maintains, what it once was and still will be. Sky Striker... I guess we put this in the Rogue category, to be honest with you. Like, the toolboxing options are still good. It's just its play cycle. It's kind of slowing down a little bit, which I think is fine for the most part. I'm going to leave Tri-Brigade in tier 2. This deck, actually, I might put it... I think it belongs in Rogue now, honestly. I think this deck has been slowing down a lot of momentum here. Though I will leave Bird up in tier 2. I think that this deck is a Rogue Buster, still solid. Solid, I will put in Rogue. A lot of people don't know how to handle Solid. The deck is kind of user-friendly at certain points, and I think that that's fine. Hero, Dark Law Turbo. I guess it goes in Rogue. That can do stuff. Same thing with Madolche. Virtual World doesn't seem all... I guess we'll put that in Rogue. Same thing with Evil Twin. Like, it's just a Rogue deck at the end of the day. Now, Pendulum. Pendulum's in an interesting position here because Electromite shenanigans with this. I actually want to put this here. I think now with this card arriving, Pendulum can actually open the door and do some relatively interesting things at the end of the day here. Like, don't underestimate what Beyond the Pendulum brings to the entire archetype, to the entire Pendulum deck, because this card can do some crazy things. Maybe I'm just being a little bit crazy here. It might originate and go down here after a little while, but I think up here for the surprise factor for the beginning, that it's going to have a pretty decent turnover as long as you know what you're doing. So those are my thoughts for the battle trajectory, touching down how November is going to look. So what do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I will see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.